I want to show you the HDR settings I'm using in Spider-Man Miles Morales to use Motion Pro High to get the brightness, and also the in-game settings, especially the difference between DLSS and FSR, because FSR is better for black frame insertion, and I'm gonna tell you why. So these are the HDR settings, just basically max out, max out. And the reason is the game with these settings is trying to output 1000 nits. So it's not a problem. And by maxing out this paper white, you get the maximum brightness possible for the midtones. And it's looking fantastic. There's no problem. So basically the game looks like there's no black frame insertion at all. It looks so bright and awesome. And on the TV, to use those settings, let me show you here. Of course, we are using. Let me show you. I'm zooming in the camera to the TV because I want to show you the difference between DLSS and FSR and why I'm using FSR. So I'm using OLED Motion Pro High, and then for the HDR settings, tone mapping off, and screen brightness 46 because the game has the black level raised. So tone mapping off, so black level on auto, which is full right now, so full on the GPU, full on the TV. And then we come here, step on select mode, and you press 11131111 and change this mastering peak to 1000 and the max CLL to 1002. Because the game is trying to output 1000 nits with everything maxed out. So that's perfect. The game looks absolutely amazing. The HDR is super bright for black frame insertion, but nothing looks blowing out. It is just fantastic. But here's the problem I have with the game. I want to get the camera very close to the screen to show you this difference between DLSS and FSR. Because FSR is better. DLSS is giving me motion blur. So DLSS is able to resolve fine details like hair better and some foliage. But when I move the camera, it's blurring the textures. So take a look at this. My point is with the. Take a look at the texture detail here. When I move the camera with FSR, the texture detail is much better preserved. And of course, this recording is at 30 frames per second, so you cannot see the same I see on the video, but the blurriness with DLSS is so big that I am sure that is going to be visible on the video. So you see how it looks with FSR? It looks very good. No problem whatsoever. I mean, there's a little bit of blurriness, but I cannot complain. I mean, it's not a big deal. So let me show you with DLSS now, because I've been talking about perfect motion clarity, and the first blurriness we need to fix is the blurriness that we have on the games themselves. So if I change here to DLSS, which is better, it performs better, it resolves fine details much better, but it has this big problem here. Okay, so I apply DLSS. So now take a look at these textures. I don't know if you can see the difference on the video. Maybe I'm not moving fast enough. The thing is, if I move fast enough so you can see the blurriness, then you know, it's 30 frames per second what I'm recording. So I can do this with Motion Pro High. I can see everything. But in order for you to see it on the video, I have to go slower. So when I go slowly here, take a look at that texture. See if you can see it. It becomes blurry. So I'm recording at 4K, but it's 30 frames. Let me zoom it in. So when I move it, it is blurry. And there is no sharpness setting that will fix that. It will be too sharp. It will be awful. It's blurry. It will blur in movement. So now I change to FSR. Let me show you. I change to FSR and that is fixed. And it looks perfect. I mean, not perfect, but it is definitely better. It's to a point where I cannot complain. Let's take a look at it. Look at that, it's perfect now. No blur. No blur whatsoever. Of course, again, 30 frames per second on the recording. What I see in front of me is 100 frames per second. So look at the frame rate is locked. And with Motion Pro High is 263 frames per second sample and hold of motion clarity. If I remember correctly the number, yeah, 263, yeah. So it's basically 38% of 10. That's what it is. So 38%, yeah. Is 3.8 milliseconds of persistence. You divide 1 by 3.8, that's what you get. So, yeah. So let me show you the performance, because I mean, the performance of this game is just stellar, man. Wow. So fantastic with dynamic resolution scaling. So this is what I do. Let me show you the in-game settings. So what I do is 100% dynamic resolution scaling, and that is keeping that GPU at a very high percentage of utilization, basically pushing as many pixels as the GPU can. That is absolutely perfect. For every single game, I want an upscaling technique in combination with dynamic resolution scaling. So I cannot complain here. I can use FSR, DLSS, this, a proprietary TAA that they have. No upscaling at all. I have SMAA if I want it. I have TAA and DLAA. I mean, it has everything. I cannot complain. I cannot complain. The problem is if you don't use any temporal technique on the game, the shimmering is just unbearable, because just the way they build the assets and everything. So I'm just using everything maxed out, the ambient occlusion on SSAO. I like it more than HBO Plus. HBO Plus is no longer broken. And of course, I don't use ray tracing. It just hurts the performance too much. I can barely tell the difference. And yeah, it's just a blurry mess. Maybe with a 4090, maybe I would use it. But it looks bad sometimes. The LSS, the reflections look bad. They look bad sometimes. And I'm using a little bit of sharpness. You see 5 on the sharpness. And no sharpness on the upscaling. So let me show you the performance of the game. Wow. Oh my. This is just fantastic performance. Look at that frame time line. I'm just gonna go through the city. See if we can see any drops. Look at that frame time, man. Absolutely flawless. This is incredible. So spectacular. I mean, The Amazing Spider-Man was easily the most spectacular gaming experience I've ever had. Like, period. This is going to be a treat. I've been playing Warzone all this time, but I'm gonna play now Spider-Man. Just fantastic. The only thing I don't like a lot is the music, man. Why? Why they put this music in? I just wanted the same classical music from The Amazing Spider-Man, which it was so good. That's okay. That's okay. Something different. Look at that! Look at that performance, man. No matter what I do, it's just a rock solid line. And that's not only the GPU, that's a CPU. So the game is just running like a dream. It's a dream. This is what I would like on every single game. Of course, I would like to get 120 but that's my GPU and a little bit of my CPU. It drops. I can get 120, but it drops, and if it drops, it breaks the motion. So yeah, you don't want that. So you see from one side to the other of the city, and just sometimes you see a 99, which I cannot tell. I mean, there's no way I can tell that drop. It's just insane. So good, man. Unbelievably good. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Oh, something happened there. That car disappeared for some reason. Of course, nothing is perfect, but this game, man, I think it is as close as it gets to technically perfect, to be honest. The only thing I don't like is that if you don't use any anti-aliasing at all, the shimmering is just unbearable. Because the way they build the assets, alpha textures, I don't know what it is, these game developers are just building their games with temporal anti-aliasing in mind, basically. And I wish that stopped. I don't want that. I want to be able to have a 4090 and push 6K, no anti-aliasing, and have zero aliasing, like an absolutely perfect image. But yeah, still doing that, you still get aliasing, and I tested that. Even at 30 frames, you still get aliasing. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions.